What happened in Boston? Best you can tell, Brian. What happened with the Celtics?
Well, they had a very rough year this year. They paid the tax of going deep into the bubble. All the teams who went deep into the bubble have had rough years this year. You know, the Heat are gone. The Nuggets are okay, but battered and hanging on for dear life in that series. The Celtics are gone, and the Lakers are in serious trouble being gone tonight. They've had the virus problem, so I mean it's not in a vacuum. On the broad scale, on the 30,000 feet scale, and the reason that Danny Ainge is probably leaving is because over the last 2+ years they've had a massive, and I can't underline this enough, a massive talent drain from that organization, from Kyrie Irving to Al Horford to Gordon Hayward, all walking out the door for nothing. They sign Kemba Walker, and unfortunately for him, he ends up being very injury prone. The draft picks that they held on to, Rich, for years, all these players would come to market. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, who didn't want to play there, Jimmy Butler, all these players would come to market, and the Celtics would make offers, but they wouldn't go all in for that player. And Danny became kind of famous for saying, we were so close, but they held on to those draft picks that they had, those extra picks, and they held on to Tatum and Brown because they were like, these guys are too valuable. And those draft picks haven't panned out. They didn't turn out to be top 3 picks like their earlier picks that they had were. They didn't hit balls out of the park. I mean, they drafted guys like Romeo Langford and Aaron Nesmith, and unless you're a Celtics fan, you probably don't know who those players are. They didn't hit home runs on that. And so it's been basically a massive talent drain. And in these last 2 years, as those guys have walked on them, the Nets have passed them. The 76ers have passed them. The Bucks have passed them. The Hawks are on a rocket ship. Looking short-term future, like they just are, their short-term future, being an elite team doesn't look great. And I am stunned that Brad Stevens is taking over that job because, and this question was asked in the press conferences yesterday to both Brad and to the owners, why are the Celtics in better position with Brad Stevens as president versus Brad Stevens as coach? Because it's one thing to take a roll of the dice on a guy who has no experience to be your president. At some point, all people who had no experience were given the job. But Red Auerbach, I assume, when he first got the job, there was a roll of the dice on that. It turned out okay. But when you do that and also hurt your coaching position, that's a heck of a gamble. And they didn't give good answers for that, in my view. They gave a word salad. So to me, that's like one of the most important things. And the other thing is, when it comes to coaching, now the coaching hire is like super duper 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 vital. He has got to hit this coaching hire. And if he's going to hire a coach who has experience or is highly desirable, that coach is going to want to bring in his own people. So is Brad going to take this promotion and then put his foot on his entire coaching staff's backside and kick them out onto the street? That's not the Brad Stevens that I know. So he's going to have to be ruthless right out of the gate. So I know that's the question I have about how this coaching hire is going to be. Is this going to be all full bore or not? So
then, was this knee jerk? Was this, something that happened over the weekend? I mean, honestly, or was this in the works? Because from what you just told me, it doesn't sound terribly well thought through, right? I'm assuming with all of that Stevens would already have a coach in mind to take his spot, right? I mean, wouldn't that be part of the plan?
I would assume that as well, but I don't know that. And you're asking the second most important question. The most important question I had yesterday was, why is this better for Brad to be in the front office instead of coaching? The second question is, when did this happen? Did Danny decide, because there had been some rumblings within the league that Danny may take a step back, either to consultant or, flat out, retiring. We were surprised at the timing of it happening on this moment, but that did not knock us over with a feather, those of us who work in the league. The Stevens move did. Now, they have shown in the past that they can be very, very covert with Brad Stevens. Remember when they hired him in this age where almost everything in the NBA is reported, we all hear about it. And trust me, a lot of moves that happen that don't actually get publicly reported, we've heard about it. that Stevens thing blew us out of the water when he got the coaching job, and none of us knew this was coming yesterday. And from what I understand, Rich, the other members of the front office were caught off by that move. Not that Danny would leave. It was that Stevens was being promoted, and his coaching staff was unaware that it was happening. And so the question I have is, was this something that you thought of 6 weeks ago? Was it something that you thought of 6 months ago? Was it something you thought of 6 days ago? When you made this decision as an ownership group to change your leadership for the first time in 18 years and not have a search, was this something that you sat and talked with Brad with for days on end and listened to all of his plans? Or was it something you were just like, oh, that sounds like a good idea? I mean, these are all really important questions that, they were not willing to give the answers to. And maybe that's smart and maybe it's worrisome. I don't know.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.